Hello, friends, countrymen, countrywomen, crunchymen, crunchywomen. I made that up. Talking about disinfectant today. That's what we'll be talking about, disinfectant. And all of the ways you can drink it, all the ways it will cure you, all the ways it will not make you feel better in any way. It's actually warm here. I might have to take my jacket off. Might have to take off my pants and jacket. That is it's an album. It's the name of an album by Blink-182. It's a great album. It's a great album. I've got albums on the mind lately because someone nominated me to pick 10 albums in a row that I really like. And I'm going to go live on Instagram and talk about this. What's up, throttlers? On Instagram. Just talking about albums. Our favorite albums. I was nominated. I just got a notification that Aristotle Full Throttle went live. So hopefully you guys did too. It's fun. I got nominated by a friend on that Facebook because, out of boredom, sitting in quarantine, we all have to come up with ways to amuse ourselves. A couple weeks ago, I made a joke. I said, at least now we could figure out which 10 albums we would bring with us to a deserted island, or which 5 albums. So basically people are like, what albums are your favorite albums of all time? Can you name 10 in 10 days? I could probably name 100 in 10 days. The problem is, why only 10? I feel like I can't do that. I don't have the ability to pare down entire genres to even just 10 albums per genre. Because I feel like that's the next challenge. 10 rock albums that were great, that really moved you. 10 country albums that were incredible. However, I don't know any country albums other than 12 Golden Greats by Ween. What's up, Tristan 2019? I nominate you. I nominate you to be the first one to suggest the greatest sequel ever. Movies, guys. There's lots of them. Thousands come out every year. The problem with movies is usually they're based on something nowadays. There's no original material. There used to be a time where people would go, hey, that movie looks interesting. Let me go check it out. I have no idea what it's about. I don't know anything. It's not based on any pre-existing material. Those days are over unless you're Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan has built a reputation on being Christopher Nolan, and therefore he could just make a movie and people will go see it because Christopher Nolan's name's on it, and we've learned that he'll give us something that's interesting and compelling every time. Pretty much every time, I'd say. Even with a crack in my voice. Tristan has just played the game and he's game overed. He has just squashed the whole game. Tristan has mentioned Terminator 2 Judgment Day as being the greatest movie sequel ever. I think you're almost absolutely right, Tristan. It's hard to argue with that, but I will. Hey, Kelsey. How are you? Nice to see you. Vintage and Modern Tea. Welcome. I welcome you all. The coffee is kicking in. My first cup of the day. The Dark Knight, Tristan says. Tristan's good at this game. Let me tell you why. Because Terminator 2, Judgment Day, probably the best sequel. I tell you, that was the greatest action movie ever made up until that point. There was Die Hard, and then there was Terminator 2. And then, at the end of the 90s, he had The Matrix, which was an original idea, kind of. But you wouldn't have a Matrix if you didn't have Tron. You wouldn't have a Matrix if you didn't have Total Recall. You wouldn't have a Matrix if you didn't have Johnny Mnemonic. You definitely wouldn't have a Matrix if you didn't have Keanu Reeves. Why wouldn't they have... I mean, come on, Keanu. If anybody is in... Hey, what's up, Tatiana? I was just refreshing my live stream page to see who's chatting on the YouTubes, because I'm also simulcast on YouTube. YouTube, Instagram... The Empire Strikes Back. Tristan, you're going to get the A for today for studying up on the greatest sequels ever, because that's my pick for the greatest sequel ever. The Empire Strikes Back. I cannot argue with that, because what it does is everything that a sequel should, We complain. We wonder. We go, why aren't there any good new movies out there? Everything's based on something. And it. They take everything they gave you in Star Wars, because the first one's called Star Wars. I'll always call it Star Wars. It wasn't called A New Hope until years later. But The Empire Strikes Back comes along and says, hey, we took this world that you fell in love with in the biggest movie ever, 1977, and in 1980 came out with a movie that was even better, arguably. I will argue that Empire Strikes Back is better than Star Wars, and Star Wars, just think about this for a second, ladies and gentlemen. There was a movie called Star Wars that came out, and it was the biggest movie ever. People lined up around blocks. This is when, remember, I'll tell you, before this time in movie history, people didn't have any, they played solitaire with actual decks of cards. They had a rock and a piece of string to wind the string around the rock. This is the only form of entertainment that existed before Star Wars. So naturally, people freaked out. It became the greatest, biggest, giantest movie ever, making all of the money in the world. And then they said, well, what are we going to do next? Well, we got to make a sequel. Let's make a better movie even still, which is incredible. It's increíble. So to me, I can't really think of a movie sequel that outdoes the first one in quality at that level of popularity. It's kind of, I mean, other than Avengers Endgame, I guess. I guess you got Titanic 2. That was good. Titanic 2, zombie icebergs. I liked that one. They had a lot of... It was good, you know, all the frozen dead people. Sorry, that's dark. You know, my grandmother was born 2 years after the Titanic. That's 100 years ago. My grandmother's no longer with us. However, she's in New Jersey. No. However, that's crazy. I would ask her. I was like, what was it like in olden times? And she's like, we just had a rock and this piece of string. That was my grandmother for you, my Nana. The Empire Strikes Back is an incredible feat of filmmaking. The things I love about that movie are a couple things. First of all, it was an independent film. It was an independent film that was produced by George Lucas after he made every dollar. He said, I made every dollar. I've got all the money. I'm going to self-produce the next movie and not have 20th Century Fox. 20th Century Fox, I think, distributed it. But he was like, I'm going to hire my former USC professor, Irvin Kershner, from USC, guys. Not even UCLA, USC. USC has got a good film school. But he hired his professor, Irvin Kershner, to direct the movie, The Empire Strikes Back. And of course, it's a freaking good movie. You got film professors directing movies now. What are they going to think of next? 2 rocks with 2 pieces of string? Hey, Will, what's up? Before Sunset. Yeah, Tatiana, you might be shocked to know, as I am shocked to reveal, that I have not seen the Before series. The Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Before Noon, Before Breakfast, Before Brunch, after and during dinner. I haven't seen any of those movies yet, and I really want to, and I've been wanting to since I was a child. Since it probably would have like resonated more when you like all your hormones are shooting through your brain and everything, when you're like, oh look, they're in love and they only have 12 hours to consummate their relationship or whatever that movie's about. It looks amazing. I mean, Julie Delpy, what an actor. Ethan Hawke's daughter, what a great actor. Maya Hawke, she's good. She's actually really good. I didn't realize that she was Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke's child when I was watching the 3rd season of Stranger Things. It was funny because I was watching it and I was like, Stranger Things, I'll deal with it. I'll tolerate it. Haven't really fell in love with it, but I'll tolerate it because I've seen all the movies. Stranger Things is a pastiche of 80s films. Pastiche, if you will, is a revisiting of a certain milieu or genre or period in art. And that's what Stranger Things is. It's just kind of like this, oh yeah, I remember that scene from The Gate. I remember that scene from E.T. I remember that scene from Altered States. So when I'm watching Stranger Things that first season, I'm just literally rewatching The Boy Who Could Fly. I'm watching Cat's Eye. I'm watching Firestarter. I'm watching every movie that they're referencing with no... I'm not impressed. Let's just say I'm not impressed with Stranger Things. I get that people love it, but I'm like, I've seen all these movies. I like all of these movies. I get... It's like playing a medley. I'm like, oh, I remember that song. And then I remember that song. So it kind of looks like that. It unfolds that way to me. So I was watching season 3 of Stranger Things, and I was like, well, at least they've got this newcomer. Who is she? She's great. Who the heck is Maya Hawke? Maya Hawke. Why does she look familiar? Why is she so good? Why is she head and shoulders above everyone else in this cast? And they're like, oh, her parents are 2 good actors. So I was impressed by that. Oh, your mom is the bride? Beatrix Kiddo? Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban, prisoner of war. You know, I haven't watched any of the Harry Potters. I did watch one of them. I watched 2 of the Harry Potters. I know this is going to be like explosion of what the hell is wrong with you. You're talking about movie sequels, and there are 47 Harry Potter movies, and you've only seen 2 of them. Yeah, I'll watch them. Logan is a great movie. I did not know that Logan was going to be so violent. I don't know why, but I took a pair of old people to it a couple years ago, and they liked it. However, every time someone was like disemboweled, I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that there was. I thought there was going to be like Wolverines, you know, Wolverines from Red Dawn." But I'll tell you something. I gotta tell you this. Let me tell you, Marvel technically used about every movie between Avengers through. Yeah. Well, I like that you bring up Marvel. Now, do we consider that those sequels? Probably. Are they a movie universe? Definitely. So, is Avengers Endgame a sequel to of Infinity War and Age of Ultron? Or is it just its own? Is it a sequel to like Captain America Civil War? Kind of. No, I guess it's a sequel to. So Infinity War would be a sequel to Captain America Infinity War. I don't know. I think it's pretty expertly done. What's up, JJ Cordova? Thank you for joining us. Talking about movie sequels. Just talking about the Marvel movies, and are they one big movie? Or are they sequels? Which one is a sequel of which? Do we consider Ant-Man the sequel or the prequel to... I don't know. So Ant-Man and the Wasp would technically be the most recent prequel to Endgame, because at the end of that's when they all vaporize. Kill Bill movies. See, that's a good one. Kill Bill Volume 2 might be better than the first one. I think it's a different movie. I like that it's a different movie. It was actually filmed as one big movie. Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2 were filmed as one big movie. And if you watch it, you remember in the beginning of Kill Bill 2, you got Uma Thurman, and she's in the car kind of giving you an update. I'm going to go, this is what I did in the first movie. And now you're watching the second movie. Now I'm going to go kill Bill. And then she drives off into the desert in the black and white. But the thing is that they just shot that extra bit so that you could tie the 2 movies together. Because otherwise, you can sort of just cut that part out, put the distinct quality, like The Empire Strikes Back has a distinct feeling, like kind of a downer feeling. It's also a distinct movie than from the first. So I think it's important that your movie does that, and I think that's what really was expertly done with the last two Avengers movies. If you have Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, you're like, well, if you sew them together, you would want one to just follow. You would want Endgame to follow Infinity War. However, Infinity War is Thanos' movie. He's the main character. It's like it's a tragic arc, or it's a triumphant arc for the villain, which is kind of a dark story. Thanos is the main character of Infinity War. It's about him. It's about his journey, and it's about his arc, and he completes his arc and wins. He wins the freaking movie. So when they made Endgame, they made a different movie. They didn't just continue with the same exact feeling. There's movies, I think The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions tried to do this, but it was just, I got confused. There were subways, there were keys, there were dudes that were very pasty with dreadlocks who could disappear and reappear. And I was like, why? Why any of this? I don't get it. And then there was a Merovingian, and there were extra long scenes in the Matrix Reloaded and the Matrix Revolutions because they were like, we need to do 2 more movies, and we only have enough ideas for half a movie. Actually, they had enough ideas for 10 movies, but they crammed them into 2 movies, but really didn't have a way of telling that story other than literally having characters tell the story. Just the Merovingian going, I am a program, you're a program, I enjoy programs. And then they'd have like a dude in this chair clicking his pen saying, this has happened 10 times before. This is going to happen again. We have to account for the human factor. It was silly. Those are bad movies. I hope The Matrix 4 is good, but that's a high hope. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Tristan brings up. Yes. If you're going to count that as a sequel to Captain America, absolutely. I think it's a better movie than Captain America. I love that it raises the stakes and holds the stakes above its head. I like this lively discussion because there's so many good sequels. But what's the greatest sequel? That's what we want to know today. That's what we're going to find out. The greatest movie sequel of all time. We're going to get to the bottom of this. But first, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video. Because that helps with the algorithms. Johnny Two-Tone and the algorithms. That's the name of the show from now on. So please do that. Just like the video. Click the like. We got Tatiana, Will, and in that chat room. You guys can go ahead and just click the like button. That would help me. It's minimal effort. I appreciate this lively discussion. Wow, we're really getting close though. Winter Soldier, Dark Knight, seconded. Will's on board with that. Tristan. Jimmy James Cordova says depends on your binge watching or not. Really believe in part 2. In a part 2 to any movie. Yeah. See, I agree with you, Jimmy James. A movie. See, this is what I believe Jimmy James is saying. Jimmy James is bringing up the point that there shouldn't be a part 1 and a part 2 of a movie. Like Kill Bill Volume 1, Kill Bill Volume 2. I think it's a better approach to creating part 1 and part 2 because they are distinct movies. So I think Quentin Tarantino is very cognizant of the idea that there should not be a movie that just feels like half a movie or part of another movie. It should be a fully encompassed, self-contained movie. And that way, you have a volume 1 and volume 2, and they're both distinct movies with distinct flavors. Like Kill Bill Volume 2 is definitely a different movie. And I love this. There's the whole dialogue about Superman in Kill Bill Volume 2. That scene, if you guys get the chance, watch that scene again. It's so good. You had Kane from Kung Fu literally talking about Superman and all the different superheroes versus Spider-Man, and why Superman is I guess the best hero. Yeah, we do need a tournament bracket, but I feel like every time we have a tournament bracket, it gets down to the Matrix, well, not the Matrix, Terminator 2 and Aliens and the Dark Knight. We might be down to, so like, I'm going to keep track here. I think the Dark Knight is popping up the most common here. Winter Soldier, Spider-Man 2. Tristan, I'm glad you brought up Spider-Man 2. I do like Spider-Man 2. I do think it's the best of the original Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, the ones with Tobey Maguire. That dude, listen, I like Spider-Man. Spider-Man was my favorite superhero growing up. However, I couldn't get behind some of the decisions that Sam Raimi made in that version of Spider-Man. Like, I didn't like that he shot webs out of his wrists. I could never get over that. I always liked the fact that Peter Parker was resourceful. He had ingenuity. He could figure out how to create web shooters like he does in the modern version of Spider-Man, which I think is so much more faithful and accurate to the character. That's the Tom Holland version that we first get introduced to in Captain America Civil War, and these 2 Spider-Man movies, and the 2 Avengers movies. Dang, he's in like a lot of the movies already. He's great. He's perfect. That character's great. He has to use the web shooters. He runs out of web fluid. It's part of the drama of Spider-Man. That's what I like. I like the fact that he cannot rely on the fact that he always has webs. He has to refill his webs and then has to get creative when he loses his web. So Spider-Man 2 with Dr. Octopus, portrayed by none other than the inimitable Alfred Molina. He's great. The story's great. I love Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi's depiction of the birth of Dr. Octopus, Doc Ock, is very stylized in Sam Raimi's style. My favorite horror movie ever is Evil Dead 2, which my friend Malin pointed out. Evil Dead 2, directed by Sam Raimi, is not so much a sequel as it is kind of a remake of the Evil Dead, which is true. If you watch the original Evil Dead and you watch Evil Dead 2 is basically the same movie. However, it's redone with a bigger budget and a little bit more in-depth. And Sam Raimi grew as a filmmaker, so he made it even more stylized. And then Army of Darkness is the third in that trilogy, which I have not seen in a long time. But that's a good one. Evil Dead 2, great. Sam Raimi. Spider-Man 2, great. But you know what? Just good. Just really good. I think it really did for the that genre, superhero genre. I think what did it for me was definitely The Dark Knight a few years later. I think Spider-Man 2 was 2004 probably, and then The Dark Knight was 2007 or 2008. And I think that's what changed the game. Yeah, Peter Parker was Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Those puppets were terrifying in Evil Dead 2. I do love the original animated Spider-Man. I used to watch that as a child. Yeah, he had web shooters. Also, there was one key weakness is that he had to swap out cartridges. Yes, that's always my favorite part about Spider-Man, Sid. The Squid Billy. That's always my favorite part about Spider-Man. Is like he's like, uh-oh, I'm running low on web fluid. How am I going to figure out this situation now? Now the situation has gotten more difficult because I cannot just rely on my web shooters. So that to me is a huge part of the dynamic of Spider-Man that was lacking in the Tobey Maguire trilogy. However, all of the characterizations are really good. J.K. Simmons is awesome. I'm glad they just brought him back to be J. Jonah Jameson in the Spideyverse, because Well, it's cool because Sam Raimi actually took over, or it's presumed that he's taking over the directing of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which he is now going to be the new director of because the director left that project. So that's exciting. Sam Raimi, the guy who kind of started it all with Spider-Man, he really did. He really kicked the whole Marvel and comic book universe off. A lot of people might mention the Dark Knight trilogy, but it was really Spider-Man and X-Men. But I think it was Spider-Man. Spider-Man was a better movie than the X-Men movies at that time. So Spider-Man legitimized the concept. And in 2008, you had Iron Man, and the rest is history from there, because the effects, I think, were what we needed. As a kid, I was like, I can't wait till these effects are convincing enough, because as a child, I would watch that rerun of that 1970s movie where, like, there was the guy playing Spider-Man and he's just in spandex climbing, like getting pulled up the side of a mountain, going like side of a building. Sorry, going like this, side of a mountain. Spider-Man doesn't climb mountains. He doesn't hike. He doesn't go trail running. Spider-Man was on Saturday mornings. And the coolest thing about that, the cartoon, was that Stan Lee would be the narrator of these episodes of Spider-Man. So as a very young child, Stan Lee would go, "What will Spider-Man do? What will he get up to?" He used to do this every commercial break. He's like, "Oh no, our Spider-Man has run out of web fluid." He was very animated himself, being a real human being and the Watcher. That was cool. I was exposed to Stan Lee. Stan Lee exposed himself to me at a very young age. The Road Warrior. Ooh, that is a good one. Yes, thank you, Will, for bringing that up. The Road Warrior. Because we were talking about sequels that are the really great sequels. And we will eventually settle upon the greatest sequel of all time. But The Road Warrior, of course, is Mad Max. It's the sequel to Mad Max. But is it, though? Because there's the Mad Max, there's the Road Warrior, and then there's Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, featuring Tina Turner. She don't need another hero. Then you've got Mad Max Again, Fury Road. Mad Max Again, Fury Road, which, by the way, is an amazing movie. And it's a subversive title because the movie is about Furiosa. Furiosa is the main character of Mad Max Fury Road, which is awesome. It's just so subversive, and that's why I love the poster where she's looking into the camera, and they're sitting here in the car. She's driving, and she's looking into the camera, and Mad Max is just staring straight ahead. Mad Max is kind of a foil in that movie. He is the guy who's trying to figure everything out, and she's the main character. It's pretty great. So Fury Road, Mad Max Fury Road, is Furiosa's movie. But the other Mad Max movies are pretty interesting because they don't follow a continuity necessarily. They're almost like these retellings. It's almost like the James Bond universe, where you kind of get the same elements each movie and a different story, but they're not necessarily contiguous, not like these new movies with Daniel Craig since Casino Royale are these all one big story. So guys, these James Bond movies is kind of like a new thing, with these last 6 movies being all one story. I mean, they touched upon similar villains and similar elements in each James Bond movie, but they weren't really direct sequels like this. Another thing about yes, Fury Road, Mad Max is her Jack Sparrow. Yes, very, very much. It's Mad Max is an incredible feminist piece, if you will. And I don't like to say like feminist piece, like, oh yeah, like, I don't know. Some people hear feminist and they think it's like a 4-letter word. It's actually got more letters than that, but it is the F word for some people. But the problem is, Mad Max, some people might look at it superficially and be like, oh, what is this sausage fest? And it turns out it's very much a movie about Furiosa and the power of breaking free from the frickin' bondage of the patriarchy. Hello. Good fucking movie. Sorry, I used the F word, the other F word. Demonetized. That's all right. It was worth it. Not that these videos are monetized anyway, but what you guys can do is pledge to my Patreon. You can go to my Patreon, patreon.com/Aristotle Full Throttle, and pledge like $1 a month, $2 a month, and that would keep this show going. You know what else would keep the show going? Indefinite quarantine. But I'll keep the show going once everything is out. Like, it's warm here in LA. It's pretty warm. But I'll tell you what, you guys pledge to my Patreon. You like this video on Instagram also. You could tap the screen. But like the video on YouTube. Share it. Come hang out with me every single day at noon. Every single weekday during the week. In our calendar, the week starts on Monday, ends on Friday. Depends on if you're, like, say, in Spain, because maybe it starts on Monday and ends on Saturday. I don't know. But we're going to talk about movies. The greatest sequels today. That's the topic of conversation. And clearly, Spider-Man 2, as good as it is not the greatest sequel ever. In my opinion. IQ said the guy who played Professor X in the cartoon ended up being Forge in 1990s X-Men cartoon. Yeah, the 1990s X-Men cartoon. I think that is what really brings the world together. I think like the I could do that all day. And keep modulating. Let me find it on the keyboard. Yeah, I find it funny because I started watching the X-Men cartoon. I think it's on Disney Plus. And the theme song comes on, and you're watching the theme song, and it's like and you're getting all into it. And then the little button pops up that says skip intro, but I'm already like, skip intro? What you talking about? I am enjoying the intro. Thank you very much. Take away that button. I don't need your skip intro button when it comes to the 1990s X-Men cartoon. I will watch that intro every time. I remember every Saturday morning getting all like excited, like what's going to happen this week? The X-Men perpetually telling this story and writing themselves into crazy parts of it. I mean, they followed a lot of the comic book things, which was cool. Greatest sequel, Aliens, hands down, says Squid the Billy. Sid the Squid Billy. Aliens was great. I totally agree. Aliens is kind of great. But wait a second, guys. I was having this discussion that Aliens, is it better than Alien? Is Aliens better than Alien? Ripley is a badass. I agree with you, Squid. Because Ripley, guess what? Ripley in Alien was like, hey, guys, you need to go into quarantine or else we could all die. She literally says that in the end of the first act when they bring in John Hurt from getting an alien attached to his face, getting a face hugger, getting his face hugged. Free face hugs. She was like, listen, guys, he needs to go into quarantine. He needs to stay. I cannot let you back in the ship. Listen, you need to follow protocol. This is a very important lesson that we can learn from the movie Alien, from Sigourney Weaver, from Ripley. She said, you need to be in quarantine or we could all die. And, I mean, it's granted you wouldn't have a movie if Ash didn't override her authority and open the door and let in John Hurt with his face hugger on. But you know what? They all died. So guys, wash your hands. Stay in quarantine, or it could kill us all. Between the first Alien and Aliens, see that's the thing. It's a tough question, guys. Which one is better, Alien or Aliens? They do differ in genre, and I have an answer to that. I have my personal opinion as to which one's better, Alien or Aliens. It might be controversial. I just fought about this for like 2 weeks with somebody. For 2 weeks, we fought. It came to fisticuffs. Alien and Aliens, guys. Which ones? Which one is better? Which one is a better movie? And that's completely subjective, obviously. If you're entertained by one more, or if you experience more joy and different levels of excitement, I don't know, if you think something and or feel something more watching one as opposed to the other, then that's the better movie for you. And I shrug with one shoulder because I'm like, I don't agree with you if you think it's Aliens. Listen, it's definitely, Aliens is like the most incredible space marine movie ever made. Definitely, it's the greatest space movie ever made about Marines shooting and hunting aliens in space on a terraformed planet. But the problem is, it's not as good as the first movie because the first movie created that whole groundwork. There was no movie before that had an alien face hugger with all these different levels of kind of this weird life cycle that we just weren't introduced to. However, James Cameron is genius because he did elevate the lore and said, well, if there's all these eggs everywhere, who's laying the eggs? Let me create a queen alien and aliens. So he did elevate the lore and the look and the action and the intensity. And it is an incredibly, thoroughly entertaining film. It's kind of a perfect movie. However, I would say, in my opinion, having rewatched Alien several times in the last few years, it's just so good. It's just a really good film. It's just a good film. It's dark. It's a piece of art. It's artwork. It's creepy. It's scary. The music is intense. The ideas are new and fresh and exciting. One of my favorite things about Alien is that none of the character roles in the script, out of the 8 cast members, none of the character roles were identified by gender at all. They were just last names. Ripley, Ash, I don't know, Hawkins, Kevin's. They were just last names. So in the script, they're just all last names. And that's how they cast. They cast the roles for the character, not their gender. This is why you get the perfect casting of Ripley by Sigourney Weaver, because no one else could have played the role. She was the best part for the role. Her father also owned NBC, so she probably had a leg up on the audition. That aside, she's still awesome. That in addition to her awesomeness. Yes, there's way more action in Aliens, Sid. There's way more action in Aliens, and I could put on Aliens and be completely enthralled from the first frame to the last. However, I could do that. Honestly, I could do that with Alien. If I just start the movie, it hypnotizes me. Hypnotize. That's how you sound it out. That's how you spell it. Hypnotize. It will hypnotize and mesmerize me and create and bring me into this crazy world of creepiness. And the way it's shot versus Aliens. Aliens is shot amazingly. James Cameron has done some groundbreaking work with projections. So like all of that stuff where Ripley is on the planet LV-246 or whatever. that's all rear projection stuff, and it looks like she's really there, and it's just intensity and greatness. However, Alien, the way it's shot, we feel there's like a whole design to that entire movie. It's just well told story. Yeah. Pat Weaver, it was Sigourney Weaver's dad. Pat Weaver was a very powerful dude. And Sigourney Weaver, I guess at one point was like, I guess I'll be an actor. And then Pat Weaver, listen, there's a lot of nepotism in Hollywood. But here's a newsflash. There's a lot of nepotism everywhere. It's frustrating. I get frustrated by it. I see it. I see it all the time here. When Tom Hanks' son, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, Colin Hanks, they were like, well, the producers of, say, Orange County cast Tom Hanks' son. That was his first big role. And they're like, well, we made him audition just like everyone else. I'm like, wait a second. So you saw the name Hanks on your list of people auditioning, and you were like, yeah, let's not use this name in our title. Let's not. I mean, you're a producer of Orange County, and somehow Colin Hanks gets an audition. Somehow, I guess he probably knows somebody, like maybe Tom Hanks or somebody, or Rita Wilson, and happens to get this audition. He walks in. He's fine. He's okay. You can tell that he can do the job. And you're the producer of Orange County. You're like, this is Tom Hanks' son. His name is Hanks. Nah. I just think it's hilarious. A producer is going to see your name. If it's Streep, if it's Hanks, they're going to want to put that next to the title of whatever movie they're producing. So even if you're afforded the rare opportunity of getting an audition for a lead role in a Hollywood film and act like that's a hardship, oh, well, I had to audition. Come on now. In fairness, if you go to somewhere like Detroit, everybody's in the car industry. So you'll know people who's like, my dad is the CEO of this car company, and then I worked at that car company, and my cousins work at that car company. So it depends on your industry. The film industry is no different. If your father's a plumber or owns a plumbing company, then you're a plumber. This is how it works, generally speaking. However, I hate it when people pretend like, oh, well, I had to audition for this role. I'm like, really, though? Do you think that it wasn't a cakewalk from the start? That's my rant on nepotism. But yeah. Later, Sid. Stay safe. Wash your hands. And make sure that you tune in every weekday at noon. We're going to do this Hangout. The coronavirus Hangout. I mean, listen. Out of all the viruses, this one seems, I guarantee you, look, that guy's not wearing a mask. That guy right there, no facial covering. Why? I wore one yesterday. I had to go out for a walk in the park, far away from everybody. Stay away. You got to wear the facial covering in addition to the social distancing, the physical distancing, not in lieu of. Back to Alien. Alien. Tatiana prefers Alien. I also prefer Alien. Aliens is an incredible, freaking action-packed, cool movie. Like, it's just, you're watching it and you're like, this movie is cool. Alien, though, I feel like it's a slow-paced, intense drama that set the stage for an entire genre of sort of this creeping monster genre. I mean, or at least it's a good example of it. Maybe not created it, but that's probably lots of films like that beforehand, where there's the monster that you don't ever see, probably during the 50s and 60s. Will, you were G.I. Joe loving, kid. Me too. Space truckers. See, that was the cool thing about Alien, is they were out of their depth. They're space truckers just mining ore from some other planet, hauling it back, talking about their raise and how much more money they should be getting for all their work. Just like stuff that people talk about at their job. And they're sidetracked. They're like, hey, go check out this little blip that we see on the radar. Go check that out. We think there's a thing you should go look at and bring back for us. And of course, it's corporations wanting. Alien is a great example, great metaphor for today right now, about people wanting to get back to work, back to the economy. Let's get back to the economy, even though there is an existential threat. The corporation, Weyland Yutani, in Alien was like, bring back the alien, even though it is an existential threat. Like, we would think we can profit off this potential weapon. We think we can profit, period. So go back to work, bring back this alien, and perhaps the entire Earth will fizzle out because of it. And that's where we're at, guys. Don't use... Oh, that was my robot program. My battery is running out. Guys, don't use disinfectant in your blood. Don't inject yourself with disinfectant. Don't spray it in your eyeballs. Don't do it. I don't recommend it, even though the president does. Let me tell you something about the president. He is a malignant narcissist, and that means that nothing he says or does is outside of... The only thing he considers in anything he says or does is how it affects him personally. So don't ever think that this guy's ever thinking about anything other than himself, because that's all he's ever thinking about. And he was talking about yesterday about using disinfectant in your blood and shining ultraviolet light in your skin to kill the coronavirus. And he thought he was coming up with brilliant ideas to tell the doctors that he's smarter than, because he is so much smarter than all the doctors, apparently. So he said, go ahead and shine ultraviolet light in your bloodstream, or put bleach in your blood. Don't do these things. Never thought I'd say this, but do not listen to the leader of the free world when it comes to wanting to get out of the situation alive. A lot of people listen to that guy. Just don't listen to him. Listen to the medical professionals. G.I. Joe. I loved G.I. Joe as a kid. I loved the series. I loved the lessons. I took them to heart. Now you know. And knowing is half the battle. I loved that. I loved it. Yeah, WTF. What's up, Klobuchar? I don't even know how to say that name. But yeah, the president was telling people to use bleach in their eyeballs, I guess, to get rid of the coronavirus, because that's the extent of his medical knowledge. And that's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing that he's like, hey, doctors, have you thought about this yet? You mentioned that sunlight can kill a virus on a surface within 5 minutes. I heard you mention that. Why don't we shine the sunlight inside people's lungs? And the doctors are just like trying not to touch their face palm. Yeah. And it's crazy. It's kind of crazy. This is the leader of the free world, guys. Will Cobra. Remember they did that TV movie of G.I. Joe? I think it was a TV movie. It might have been an actual feature film. And then Cobra and Cobra Commander actually devolved into a snake. That was creepy. Was that a sequel? What's the greatest sequel? Is it The Godfather 2? What's up, Kat? Thank you for joining us. We're talking about what's the greatest sequel ever made. What is a sequel that is better than the first movie? What is a sequel that is even better than other movies altogether? Like, let's say, Return of the King. Was that better than The Two Towers? No. But Return of the King won Best Picture that year. Why? because people recognized, I think, in my opinion, Peter Jackson's overall effort on all three of the Lord of the Rings movies, and then awarded him the Best Picture and Best Director award for Return of the King on account of the fact that he made 3 gigantic movies all at once. It took him 2 years or 2.5, some insane amount of time to create, and filming them all at once. I don't think that The Return of the King is better than The Two Towers. I think The Return of the King has like 30 minutes at the end of just Sam and Frodo staring at each other. I'm like, all right, guys, if you're going to get it on, just get it on already. Harry Potter, I hear, has some good sequels. Hey, Mark, how are you? We're just drinking our coffees and our teas and talking about some sequels, movie sequels. What's the greatest sequel of all time? The answer is The Empire Strikes Back, but we could still talk about this. There's plenty of other movies. What do we got? I don't think that. Change my mind. Is The Return of the King better than The Two Towers? I don't think so. Probably not. Terminator 2. I don't know if Terminator 2 is a better movie than Terminator, or just the Terminator again, like Terminator TOO, but just bigger, with lots of money and a good Terminator. The good Terminator, Desolation of Smog, was good. I did like Desolation of Smog. Here's a fun thing. If you watch Eggs Benedict Cumberbatch do his motion capture performance of Smaug, I say Smaug, he is an incredible actor. You should watch that. I suggest that perhaps in 7 minutes when we end this video cast. And if you guys are on Instagram, you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, AristotleFullThrottle.com. Like the videos and all that. We're going to be doing these every day at noon. But if you watch Eggs Benedict Cumberbatch do his little Smog performance, he's kind of like... They should have just filmed him in a costume. They could have just put like one of those dinosaur costumes on him, one of those inflatable dinosaur costumes, and then saved a whole lot of money on the budget. Just give him a dinosaur costume. Dinosaur. Dino DNA. Jurassic Park's never got better than the first one. That's just sad. I haven't even seen the Kingdom of the Crystal Jurassic Park, the last one that came out. Cucumber Kingdom, I think it's called. That one, Chris Pratt is in that one. And I believe that... here's what I didn't like about the first Jurassic Park. The fourth one. The one that came out like 4 years ago. Jurassic Park, Jurassic Kingdom. What's it called? Jurassic Amusement Park. This movie, I did not like it because for several reasons. One was I was watching it. That's the first reason. Second reason is the Bryce Dallas Howard's character is running a very intense amusement park. Her job is to be the runner of a really high-end, well-maintained amusement park where I guess the way she does that is she stands in the middle of a room looking at monitors and pointing at them. Like, that seems like a comfortable job. Meanwhile, she's wearing like those really high heels the whole movie and running around. But I guess the director of amusement park stands in a giant room and looks at monitors and points at them. And then that's how she directs an amusement park. Or zoo, or whatever you want to call it, an attraction. And her arc as a character is that she's trying to become friends with her sister again and bond with her nephews. Now, she's running an amusement park, and then she's got her nephews there, and she says, okay, well, you can go with this lady, and she will take you to every part of this amusement park, and you can go up the exits of all the rides, and you can have a freaking blast. And to me, in my mind, watching that, I'm like, she is the greatest auntie ever. What a great aunt. She said she took her nephews and said, listen, while I'm running this amusement park all day, standing in the middle of a room with high heel, awesome banner, ridiculously cool aunt. However, for some reason, Colin Trevorrow, the director, makes us want to not like her, makes her character needs to change, apparently, because she's not a good aunt, because she keeps getting on the phone with her sister, her nephew's parent, her mom, and is like, oh, why aren't you spending time with the kids? Because she's running an amusement park. She's busy. She has a job. She let these kids. So first of all, I just could not get into that character motivation. I'm like, why are you being such a dick to your sister who's got kind of a big deal job right here, and you just unloaded your kids on her and said, take care of my nephews? No, she did. She let them go run the amusement park. That's one reason I don't like that movie, because I just could not get behind that motivation of a character. It's like, this is dumb. She's awesome. She's letting them run the park. I don't care if they feel like they're not spending quality time with their aunt who's busy. Secondly, I hate the fact that the one kid is smart because he can identify dinosaurs. Cool. Lots of kids like that. Lots of kids go, that's a dinosaur. I could name that dinosaur. Cool. I get that. I can get behind that. I like it. I think it's cute. However, that same kid somehow can also fix a Jeep that has been rusted out in the jungle for 20 years. Somehow, because he understands what dinosaurs look like, that means, audience, dumb audience, that means he could also be a mechanical engineer or for a Jeep that has been rusted in the jungle. Come on, guys. That doesn't follow. It doesn't follow. I could go on and on about how that's not the greatest sequel. Maybe I'm getting worked up about not that much. I think you're right. Godzilla, Mechagodzilla is probably the greatest sequel. Transformers are not good. Lethal Weapon 2 is a great movie. Again, though, I think, it just builds so much on what we establish in Lethal Weapon. So Lethal Weapon 2 is great, but Lethal Weapon almost becomes an origin story for Lethal Weapon 2. Both really good movies. Except, with the exception of having Mel Gibson in them. Critters 2, Gremlins 2, yes, these are good suggestions. K, Blue Chart, Cat. Critters 2 was pretty fun. Didn't Critters 2 have like a rock and roll musician in them? Listen, guys, I've only got a couple minutes left, so we're going to wrap this up, but rapid fire, real quick. Greatest sequel ever. Is it The Dark Knight? Is it Aliens? Is it Godfather 2? Is it The Empire Strikes Back? Is it Terminator 2? Is it Avengers Endgame? Does that even count? We're going to decide in the next 2 minutes. Yeah, I tell you, Jimmy James, I only get worked up when there's injustice in this world. When I witness injustice, when I see inequity, when I see an imbalance of power, when I see a big bully picking on a little guy, when I see people making fun of Bryce Dallas Howard because she won't hang out with her nephews, I get worked up. That really grinds my ears. Is that the way? Is that the term? That grinds my ears? It like gets inside your ear and like grinds it. That's what it does to me. Godfather 2. You might be right. They both won Best Picture. Godfather and Godfather Part 2 both won Best Picture. Beat that. Who's ever done that before? Nobody. Before Return of the King, there were no other sequels that won the Oscar for Best Picture other than The Godfather Part 2. So Return of the King was a sequel that won Best Picture, and I think since then there has been another sequel that may have won Best Picture. Green Book. That was the sequel to Green Mile. The next movie is called Green Mug. The next one's called Green with Envy. Tatiana says it's Empire Strikes Back or Godfather Part 2. We might finish up this discussion over on YouTube, guys. So if you're watching on Instagram Live right now, we've got about 27 seconds left to go over to AristotleFullThrottle.com. If not, you can always pledge $1 or $2 a month to this channel. If you comment on YouTube, you can qualify to win a PS5. You can win a PS5, guys. Go over to YouTube, AristotleFullThrottle.com. Comment on my videos, like them, share them. I love you guys. You guys rock. I'm Aristotle Full Throttle, your bro in the know with the fro on Instagram Live, and I'll see you later. And we're out. We're here. Just me and you guys. Just me and you guys here on YouTube. We're just hanging out. We're having a hangout. I think it is. Tatiana, it might be a tie. It might be a tie between Empire Strikes Back and Godfather 2. I think that Godfather Part 2 is pretty incredible. Again, different movie than the first one. Really cool that Al Pacino and Robert De Niro are both in that. Robert De Niro barely speaks English in that movie. Kind of amazing. I didn't realize that. I'd grown up watching Robert De Niro movies and then finally got around to the Godfather movies when I was in film school. And I was like, wait a minute, Robert De Niro doesn't speak English in this movie. I didn't know he couldn't not speak English. I didn't know he couldn't not speak Italian. That's a pretty good movie. I liked it a lot. It's intense. I like that Robert De Niro and Marlon Brando have played the same character. Interestingly. But it wasn't until the movie Heat when Robert De Niro and Al Pacino first shared the screen together. And then recently, I guess, in The Irishman. Fallen Kingdom. I tell you. Oh, yeah, the Neverending Story sequels. Those are great. I'll never watch them. I'll probably never watch them. I know that they've got Jonathan Brandis in them. The first movie was a weird kind of Northern European movie, which is kind of bizarre. The Neverending Story, because it's a lot of overdubbing, which I find quite charming. It was the 80s. Pardon me, guys. Sorry. It's the coffee. It's so good. Those movies are great. Swap The Godfather with The Dark Knight. I think it's decided, guys. I think between me and you here on YouTube, people on Instagram are missing out. But definitively, it's The Dark Knight. It's The Dark Knight. And The Godfather 2. It's the two of them. They're a tie. I'll tell you why. Dark Knight. Incredible Hollywood epic film. It's not as good as Godfather 2 overall, because Godfather 2 is just an incredible work of art. It's just an incredibly, impeccably told story that takes place so perfectly, seamlessly after Godfather. Yet it's a whole other movie. Think about Francis Ford Coppola creating the adaptation, The Godfather. But again, Dark Knight it's a tie, because Dark Knight, it's got to be a tie, because Dark Knight, kind of an original work by the Nolan brothers. This is a tough one. It's a tough one. I think it depends on what day it is. And today it's The Dark Knight. Today it's The Dark Knight. Just think of that Joker. You want to know how I got these scars? Every story is different. You don't think you need Batman Begins to appreciate The Dark Knight? You're absolutely right. I think my brother has not even seen Batman Begins, and he likes The Dark Knight a lot. And he doesn't even like movies like that he considers superhero movies. I don't consider movies a superhero movie or this kind of movie or that or this or that or this kind of things. I just like movies. So if the movie is good and it's got a good hook to it and it's interesting and entertaining, I'm down. And with that, guys, have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. Be kind to each other. More importantly, be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes and dudettes. Y'all are my favorite. I appreciate you, and I appreciate this conversation. And thankfully, The Godfather 2 is the greatest sequel ever made. I'll see you on Monday.